It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studio is my business partner and fellow CFP, Josh Gregory, and special guest, Matt Hoke.
Losing a spouse is one of the worst tragedies that can happen in life. And it also brings about some of the most important decisions that you have to make as a surviving spouse. If you inherited an IRA from your spouse, the rules are tricky and making the wrong choice can be extremely expensive. We're going to unpack that with you today, along with Matt Hoke, on today's episode of The Wise Money Show.
That's what we're kicking it off with. And yeah, gosh, emotionally just difficult. And then if the emotions are running high, you want the finances to be easy. It's anything but. It's gotten a lot more complicated dealing with a real life planning situation through a question of a fan of the show. We're going to hit that first and then hit additional questions as well. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. If you need any help, we are here for you as well. Call or text us 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us and reach out to us there. Or all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. Matthew Christopher Nels Hoke, I cannot believe it. You've been one of my favorite people on earth for a long time. Been at KFG for forever. It's first time on the show.
That's right. 18 years we've worked together,
18
right?
years.
Is
yes.
that hard to believe?
It's very hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun.
I
Now,
guess,
just really quick, just on air, because we haven't had you on the show, are you self-conscious by not being a guest? I'm just kidding. No, Matt is incredible. He's an incredible, wise individual, an unbelievable man, and is the lead financial advisor for many relationships, mentors a lot. I mean, Matt has held a lot of different roles at KFG, as well as being a CFP, a great CFP, serving the community and lots of families. And so we're grateful to have you on the show, Matt.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say he's one of the most active financial advisors on our entire team, serving more clients than most. So while we're just playing around in the studio, he's usually serving clients on the front lines. So
all right,
glad we get you here, though, Matt. It's I don't know. I'm excited to be able to hear some wisdom from you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so here we go. Let's get into it. First question, and we're dealing with this real life with some clients as well. An awful situation, but first question from fan of the show. Here's what it is. Fan of the show. I've got a tough question, both emotionally, but also to the unique financial rules. Question comes from Ray, and he says, I have some questions about inherited IRA distribution rules and the new 10-year rule for a spouse beneficiary. Here's the situation. Husband passed away in 2023 at the age of 46. Spouse is the same age, so 47 in 2024, 48, turning 48 sometime this year, and opened an inherited IRA in order for that flexibility. A 4-part question, and we're going to just tackle these one at a time, okay? First question, can the spouse start taking required minimum distributions anytime between 2024 and the year the husband would have turned 73, which is 2050? So we're deep. We are deep in the weeds. Go.
Well, in my mind, you have to at least level the playing field here, because why is this even a question? Why are there some choices for a surviving spouse, that sort of thing? And I almost wonder if maybe where we begin is comparing how everybody on the planet could inherit an IRA and really have not many choices, but then how is that different from if you inherit from a spouse?
Yeah.
Because you do get some special flexibility, some extra options, but the choices are really, really critical, right? Which is why this question's being asked, and it sounds like maybe some answers have already been made, and we're kind of dealing with some fallout here. But I don't know, Matt, if you want to be the one that kind of unpacks initially, how does someone inherit an IRA in general, but then how is that different for a spouse?
Sure. So when someone dies, hopefully they've named beneficiaries on their IRA, and if they have, those beneficiaries are going to be able to set up an inherited IRA. Now, that would be for a non-spouse. A spouse has their kind of special benefit of being able to make that IRA their own. And so they can treat it as their own IRA. They are the only ones who have the ability to do that. So they've got some special benefits associated with that everyone else doesn't have today.
Everyone else would open an inherited IRA, and what are the rules with that?
Well, under the new rules, when you have an inherited IRA, you get that IRA, and it will be what's considered a 10-year rule IRA, where you have to take out money over the next 10 years or have it fully depleted within a 10-year period of time.
Yeah.
So you don't have the ability to stretch that IRA over a life expectancy anymore. There's a new rule that has to be done quickly.
And man, we've been talking about this for a number of years. Ever since the original Secure Act came out, that's what introduced this 10-year clock ticking on these inherited IRAs. You don't get to just take the rest of your life to slowly deplete the IRA that you inherited. The government wants you getting that money out within 10 years. And why? It's because they want to tax you.
That's right.
Right? Those dollars have been out of their reach for the entire lifetime or the of that account. It's never been taxed along the way. Now is their opportunity to get some tax dollars. But you drew the distinction there. An inherited IRA can be treated differently with a spouse. A spouse has the unique ability to essentially put their name on the account as if it's always been their own, right? It's one that you could then contribute to on an ongoing basis. You can do things like Roth conversions with that account that's in your name. All of that is only available to a surviving spouse, not to a surviving child or whatnot.
That's right. Okay, so, and I'm glad you're wading into this, because now that we're into the question, I don't see how in the world we answer this in one show. Like this is so complicated. But okay, so the spouse is treated differently. Everyone else has the 10-year rule. There's actually 3 different classifications of beneficiaries now. And first classification is a non-designated beneficiary. So that is, you didn't list a living person or whatever. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make sure you list beneficiaries. Matt was wise to state that first. So that might be your action item today. Second would be non-eligible designated beneficiary. Non-eligible but designated. Designated mean they were listed. They're a human being listed as a beneficiary, but not eligible for what? Not eligible to continue to stretch that withdrawal of that IRA over their lifetime. They've got to now take this 10-year rule. The account needs to be emptied within 10 years following the date of death. And if the original account owner, original IRA owner, had already passed the required beginning date, so they were already required to do RMDs, new this year, 2025, you have to take annual RMDs as well and have the account emptied within 10 years.
So by definition, that's someone who's older, right?
Yeah.
They've already reached age 73. And as they were the owner of the IRA, the government requires them to start pulling a minimal amount out every single year so that, again, it can be taxed. If they've already crossed that threshold of age and met that requirement, that's what you're referring to in this case.
And for this same classification, non-eligible but designated beneficiary, if the original account owner hasn't yet reached the required beginning date, you're not forced to take annual distributions, but you still are forced to have the account emptied within 10 years. Now, last category, eligible designated beneficiary. So eligible for special rules, but designated, listed as a beneficiary. You've got 4 of them. You've got the spouse, and the spouse has unique rules, which we're going to get into with this question. Then you have a minor child. They have different rules as well. They don't have to start the 10-year rule until they reach the age of majority, either 18 or 21, but could still have required minimum distributions. That's the second category of eligible designated beneficiaries. Chronically ill or disabled, that's the third. They're still allowed to stretch it. And then an individual, a beneficiary who's less than 10 years younger than the original owner. So think you inherited from a sibling. You're eligible to continue to stretch. The 10-year rule doesn't apply. So of those 4 eligible designated beneficiaries, the spouse is the scenario we're talking about, very unique rules. Of those 4, the spouse is the only one that has the ability to say, you know what, I don't want to treat this as an inherited IRA. I want to take it as my own and keep it simple and do Roth conversions like you mentioned, Josh, and all that sort of stuff. Why would the spouse choose to do a 10-year rule, or excuse me, not a 10-year rule, choose to do an inherited IRA instead of making it their own. It's for this very scenario. We spent the entire first segment just setting up how we're going to answer it. It's when the spouse is younger than age 59 and a half. It's very likely you're going to want to treat it as an inherited IRA instead of your own. And we're going to explain why in just a minute, and then answer the first question and then the following the additional questions with this very complicated issue. So we've got that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning, and also on podcasts at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations as well, which is why the content's broken up the way that it is, has segments like we're on a radio break right now, and also is long form. It's long form. Sometimes people don't like that in YouTube, and that's okay. We've got next wise step videos. They are all throughout the work week right here for you, 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long, taking one financial concept, applying it directly to your financial life. So you need a refresh on, what were those classifications of beneficiaries now with this new rule? Done videos on that, have content on it as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you're subscribed to the channel. Turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, like the content, leave questions here as well. This is sticky stuff. So,
Are you hearing that?
Just heard it, but I don't hear it anymore.
You don't?
No, I'm getting it. It's all over I'm getting a ton of it.
But what she's hearing matters the most because
Yes.
that's the feed that is being recorded, right?
Yep. Thank you, Josh. I was ready to go right into questions. We can't answer this question without laying the foundation.
Right.
So hopefully, and we got deep, but
I felt like you were kind of building some energy and maybe got a little bit louder or something, and it all of a sudden overloaded the system. You broke it, dude.
I got some energy.
Fired
Come
up.
on.
I don't know, but
All
the
right.
fact that it caught your attention made me wonder, is this more than just what's happening in our
Yeah, I
headphones?
heard it, but maybe it lasted a couple seconds, and then I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. I'll try to tone it down.
That's right.
What's that? Is it Spider-Man? Like in one of the new
Spidey
Spider-Man?
sense?
No, in one of the new Spider-Man movies, there's I don't even know what the guy's name is, but he's electrically charged
That's,
up.
Peter
No.
Parker.
No way. That's Spider-Man? No. Like there's a character who's got this energy to him and he can zap stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
You're really up on your pop culture, aren't you?
I got kids that are into this
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty decent. Decent stories. All right. So now that that's set, we're into the actual questions. And we did violate what I told you was going to happen just because you are so polite, Matt. But I can just tell you're going to wait until, is it my turn? And so Josh called on you.
Yep.
We'll do that again if we need to, but dude, don't wait.
That's fine.
Don't wait.
Yep.
So, all right, here we go. Second segment. The rules are wildly complicated with inheriting a retirement account now, an IRA, qualified account. The rules have just changed. It's more complicated. You need planning. And we're dealing with a really, really unique question from a fan of the show about if you inherit an IRA from a spouse when you're younger than age 59 and a half. A lot of questions, tangents to this we're going to be breaking down. That's what we're helping with right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Josh Garvey, special guest Matt Hoke. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there as well. We appreciate that feedback. All right, so let me reset the question again. We had to just share context. I'm so glad we did. Question comes in from Ray. Hey, enjoy watching your YouTube show and valuable information. Appreciate that. Got a question about inherited IRAs and 10-year rules for a spouse beneficiary. Husband passed away in 23 at the age of 46. Spouse is same age, so she turned 47 and 25, will be turning 48 this year. She opened an inherited IRA instead of making it her own. Okay, from that first segment, we laid that out. She opened an inherited IRA so that she can withdraw assets without a 10% penalty. First question. Can the spouse start RMDs, required minimum distributions, anytime between the year after date of death, so 2024, and 2050?
It's a good question. They don't need to start RMDs because she has the ability to take out money from the IRA at any point without having to pay the penalty. So there's no reason to to have an RMD. This RMD can go all the way out until she'll be required to take it at 73.
I mean, this is so there's a huge decision right here for spouses. You have this choice. Do I turn the IRA, the inherited IRA for my spouse, or I turn it into my own, or do I create an inherited IRA? When you're younger than age 59 and a half, most likely you're going to want to create an inherited IRA instead of making it your own.
Yeah, most flexibility.
That's right, because you have the ability to draw money out. We don't call it an RMD. That's a little bit of a misnomer here, and that's okay. What I think Ray was really asking is, can they just start taking distributions or taking withdrawals from the IRA? And that's one of the beauties of an inherited IRA, right? That you have the ability to pull money out as needed in chunks or in monthly distributions, however you want it to go, and you don't get penalized. The 10% penalty is really what's at play here that you're trying to avoid. With that inherited IRA, you avoid a 10% penalty. Now, whoever that beneficiary is that's receiving this money on a monthly basis, they're pulling money out of an IRA, they're paying tax on it, though.
Yeah.
It's still income to them. But, boy, if you're 46 years old and you lost your spouse and probably lost an income for the family as well, you need some flexibility in your life, right? Like you need some a pool of dollars that you can go to supplement whatever other income you have rolling in, whether it's your own paycheck or maybe if you have kids under age 18 and you're receiving a Social Security benefit to help finish raising them and getting them launched from the nest, it may not be enough income for you. And so the ability to go to an inherited IRA and avoid a 10% penalty is a great flexibility for sure.
But the distinction here with question one, can a spouse start taking RMD anytime? The spouse is an eligible designated beneficiary, but is uniquely positioned where she doesn't have to take a required minimum distribution. By treating it as an inherited account, she's not forced to take an RMD. She can just take withdrawals anytime she wants. And so that is an unbelievable benefit only available to spouse beneficiaries and only available if the spouse is the sole beneficiary, right? We didn't insert that. Now, question number two, if the spouse takes random distributions before an RMD, does she fall into the 10-year rule? i.e., is it possible to take a random distribution and start the RMDs later? The 10-year rule doesn't apply. Now, if you get into the minutia and the weeds of these rules, technically the spouse could choose the 10-year rule. And I think there's some very weird situations if the inheriting spouse is a lot older than the spouse that passed away and maybe already past RMD age, but the spouse that passed away wasn't yet at RMD age. Maybe the 10-year rule would be a little bit better. I've seen some of those scenarios, but we're already in the weeds, and that is so far in the weeds. The point here
like
is
a pretty rare scenario that might not apply to a lot of people.
But it happens, and so really the point is you got to be working with a certified financial planner, ideally prior to this event, and hopefully this circumstance never happens to you. But certainly if you're facing these choices, make sure you're working with a CFP before you make choices. And so no, the 10-year rule would not apply unless if the spouse was the sole beneficiary and moved it to an inherited
So I want
IRA.
to make sure I understood that second question. Is Ray asking if I took my spouse passed away, I inherit an IRA from them, and I make it an inherited IRA instead of making it my own? Those two choices there, I already made my choice. I'm choosing an inherited IRA. If I start just drawing randomly as needed, as I was kind of describing there, is he asking, does that lock me in now to the normal 10-year rules? Is that kind of the essence of what he's saying?
I think that's what the question was, and the nice thing is, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You have the beauty of flexibility in that situation, so you can take distributions if you want, and you don't have to take them if you don't want them until you get to the RMD age.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of flexibility, which is really, really nice. But real quickly, I want to go back to something you said a minute ago when you were talking about sole beneficiaries and whether you have the 10-year rule or not. Potentially, you could be forced into the 10-year rule if you're not the sole beneficiary. So that is an important estate planning. It's really important to have financial planning in dealing with the CFP, because who you name as the beneficiary matters.
Yeah.
And if your spouse is not the sole beneficiary, that may be great for some reasons because you want to divide that money up, but it may lock your spouse into some things that you don't want them to be locked into.
That was actually going to be something I was going to ask you the question, is there a circumstance when you have seen someone other than just a sole spousal beneficiary? Like, in other words, someone who has named more than just their spouse as the primary beneficiary, and then maybe they have some contingent beneficiaries.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
I do have some clients who this is second marriage,
Yeah.
and what we ended up doing was setting up separate IRAs, though,
Yeah.
so we didn't run into this issue. There's one
Smart.
IRA with kids named as primary and one IRA with a spouse named as primary, so it gives the spouse full flexibility, and it doesn't mess that up by allowing the kids to have an inheritance also.
Yeah.
My mind went to, from time to time, we've got clients who say, well, I want most of everything to go to my surviving spouse, but there's maybe a charity or some other entity that I want to have maybe 10% of this old IRA to go to my alma mater or to my church or to some missionary or something like that. That would be a circumstance where if you literally named them on side by side with your spouse gets 90% of the IRA and this other entity or other beneficiary gets 10%, all of a sudden your spouse loses some of that flexibility. They're locked into that 10% rule, if I heard you correctly.
That's correct. Yeah,
So-
it's certainly something to be paying attention to.
I like the solution, though, that you were offering, that instead of, in my charity example, instead of having the charity named as a beneficiary with your spouse, you may be better off splitting the IRA into two and letting the charity be the entire beneficiary on that smaller IRA, and then leave the larger IRA to your spouse. So that, again, you're just keeping options available to your surviving spouse. You may not be thinking along those lines because most people are busy living their life and enjoying retirement together or raising kids, and you're not thinking about what happens if tragedy strikes, right?
Right.
But man, this is where your estate planning, your beneficiary decisions and how you set up accounts has major implications for the people left behind if you do pass away prematurely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were actually doing some work, a task force internally here at KFG, several different departments, different team members talking about how we can enhance our just the value add with giving peace of mind and planning with beneficiary elections for clients and folks that we serve. And I was laying it out like this. Your beneficiaries, they just don't matter. It feels like a chore. It feels like, why are you distracting me with this? They don't matter until they're the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And in an instant, it's the only thing that matters. We can't do anything. I can't even think. I can't even breathe until, oh, those are the beneficiaries. Okay, now we know, and let's plan. And so getting this right is critical. Your CFP should be reviewing this with you, planning with you. All right, we've got more subsets of this question, that more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. I noticed, Lindsay, I feel like all of the arms went back up. It's as if they were in the same spot as they were, just without the cage. And so anyway, we might want to mess with that, because I think the idea was move the arms farther away, have them lower, and have the mics come up so there's less like visual interference.
I mean, I do feel like this is an improvement, but
the cage is
if
better.
what you were shooting for was, something more of
You're going to
like
break that. Yeah.
I know.
Right. It's starting.
It's starting to. That's funny.
You might be holding it for the rest of the. All right, here we go.
Shoot.
But yeah, we can tinker with that later. And yeah. All right, third segment. We'll pick it back up. We'll answer these last two questions. The third question is going to be quick. The fourth question might be quick as well, and then we'll get into I'm hoping we get into the next question here in this third segment. So, all righty, here we go. Spouses that inherit an IRA after a spouse passes away have some unique rules, And they have to make this decision. Do I treat the IRA as my own, or do I treat it as an inherited IRA? The question is that a permanent choice? You'd think so. Is it? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Josh Gregory, special guest Matthew Hoke. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, turn on notifications there as well so you're made aware every time we drop new content, and leave questions there and comments. You can share the show. Make sure that you go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, and subscribe and engage with us that way. All right, we're answering a question from a fan of the show who is a fan of the YouTube channel, and circumstance is spouse passed away in 2023 at age 46. His wife is the same age, and she made a decision, instead of taking his IRA and turning it into her own, which you're allowed to do, she elected to treat it as an inherited IRA. Seems like it's the wise choice to do, because this is the third question. If she takes random distributions before starting RMD, is there a 10% penalty even though she's younger than age 59 and a half? We've already said it. No, she isn't. So that's the situation where, she's 40, she's in her 40s. She needs some of this money. Or Josh, you were saying, even if it's not immediately apparent that, she's going to need this money, she's going to want flexibility. Mm-hmm. And that flexibility would suggest, of this choice, do I treat it as my own, take the IRA that was my husband's and turn it into my own? If you do that, now it's your own. And if you're 47 and you need to take money out, is there a 10% penalty?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons when I work with widows or widowers, I counsel them, don't make any major decisions in the first 6 months. But this is a decision you need to make. But it needs to be made in the context of your financial plan, because we need to understand cash flow, what's coming in, what's going out. Are you going to need money from this investment?
Yeah.
And so you need to know that before you make these decisions.
So taking the inherited IRA, even though you could have made it your own, taking the inherited IRA allows you to take a withdrawal if you want to, and that withdrawal is it's taxable, like Josh said, but there's no 10% penalty even if you're under age 59 and a half. So when would RMDs start? In this scenario, the RMDs would start not when you turned 73, but when the original account owner turned 73, which is just wild. But now to question 4, and this feels like it's not even possible, because the IRS certainly is not this nice, and we know Congress, they're just a bunch of jerks. Question 4, is it possible that the spouse takes random distributions and then actually in the future rolls over the remaining assets to their own IRA later? So going back to this choice of the spouse could choose to take it as their own IRA or treat it as an inherited IRA. Really, the question is, can they change their mind?
And yes, they can.
Unbelievable.
It is. You wouldn't think it's possible, but there's some times you might really want to do that, because if you took it as an inherited IRA, if you were under 59 and a half because you needed to take distributions, you could then change it to your own IRA and then allow yourself to not have to take that money and stretch it out, and just there might be reasons that you would want to do that. It gives you flexibility at that point.
And makes it easier if you've got your own
simplification.
IRA. So like most scenarios, and I'm not going to say all, like deep in the weeds, there's a scenario where you wouldn't do this, but where you, like in this situation, she would treat it as an inherited IRA until she turns 59 and a half, and then she would move it to her own IRA. Mm-hmm. That's likely what would happen.
Because after it moves to her own IRA, she can still keep on taking distributions
right,
without a 10% penalty. The tax picture is all identical. Maybe if she's younger than the spouse that passed away, that even allows her to delay when she'll reach required minimum distributions, because it would go from his age to now her age that would be calculated off of, assuming it was the husband that passed away here.
Can you
it's
believe?
Interesting. It is shocking that that's even an option, though.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when a spouse passes away, or when life is shaken up on you and you're making choices, a lot of times they are irrevocable, right? And so for this one to be, I don't know, an option, I guess I'm not surprised in the sense of, well, you would want Congress to be extra flexible for a surviving spouse, right? Mm-hmm. Give them maximum ability to make adjustments that help avoid 10% penalties during the younger years when they might need to draw early, but then also have the ability to delay when they have to draw off of these accounts as well. So I don't know. I'm glad it exists, but it only exists if you play your cards right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I go back to what Matt said. That's worth putting an exclamation point on. He said that it needs to be decisions made in the context of your financial plan. These are decisions that you want to make with your certified financial planner. And how often is it that tragedy strikes, a spouse passes away prematurely, maybe even surprisingly, and what happens? Like the family rallies around that surviving spouse, rallies around mom or dad who's still living, and they want to just start taking action. Like, we got to help mom get this account settled and deal with all the stuff that was in dad's name. We got to get it into her name. And may, with great intentions and great helpfulness, actually limit some options for mom in that case.
Yep.
And so to me, the takeaway on that is, man, if your family is facing grief because you just said goodbye to someone unexpectedly and you're trying to pick up the pieces, don't start taking action and then go seek advice and guidance. Go get the guidance early. Even while you're still, you might not even be in a spot where you can have conversations about this without the tears. Hey, we've got Kleenexes. We're happy to be patient. We understand, and you need someone to walk through the process with you and help you avoid making some decisions that actually could hurt you in the long run, just because it takes away some great benefits that maybe you really needed.
So action items may be, even if you're thinking, I'm not in this scenario, I hope I'm never in this scenario, I shouldn't have even been listening. Your action item might just be right now, you need to review beneficiaries. Do a beneficiary audit for all of your accounts to ensure that you've got the proper beneficiaries. That could be action item number one. Another one, like Josh talked about, I mean, if you find yourself in this situation before you make any decisions, you need to be doing comprehensive financial planning. We serve a lot of folks who have just said, well, I need some help along the way, planning for goals and making sure that I'm doing the right thing, tax strategies, and my retirement's clear and investments are all dialed in. But I also want to have a relationship with someone that knows my financial life better than I do, just in case I pass away, right? I'm just going to tell you, Cindy doesn't know our financial picture as well as I do. And if that's your situation where one spouse manages the finances, the other spends the money. I'm just kidding. But isn't as in tune. You need a financial planner because they're going to add value along the way, but then they're also going to add this extra value just in case tragedy does strike. Update your estate plan. And that could be another action item as well. And then lastly, do the fire drill. Do the fire drill of what would happen if one of us passed away. Do we have enough life insurance? Do we have are we self-funded? Are we self-insured? What would the tax picture look like? Would we need to touch IRAs? Those sorts of things. Do that planning work. Not fun to your financial planner. They're not going to enjoy that either, but they sort of will because they're geared towards helping you plan for any possible future. So good question. All right, we're going to transition to the next one. Not lying. This question comes from Bernard through email. He says, my current income, and I'm gonna set this one up. We're probably not going to be able to fully answer it until next segment, but just to seed this in, because at first glance I saw the question. I'm like, oh, I see the angle, and I'm surprised we haven't gotten this question before. My current income's $51,000 a year. I'm 56. I'm single. I plan to retire at 65. But here's what I'm actually planning on doing. When I turn 62, can I max out my 401k pre-tax and then file for Social Security without it being penalized? Think about this. We're going to break this down to talk about why your full retirement age matters with Social Security, and if you work and draw Social Security at the same time, what happens there. But Bernard's aware of those rules, and he's looking and saying, if I make $51,000, but I hide a lot of that from income taxes by funding my 401k, can I turn on Social Security in that situation without it being penalized? We'll talk about whether that's a smart plan, whether there are some other adjustments or what the trade-offs are as well. And then we've got more questions from other fans of the show. All of that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right. Drug it on as long as I could, but we're a couple segments.
You were in no man's land. Like, okay, can't go into the question, but also can't end the segment yet.
So thanks for clarifying the I talked about being able to stretch it out longer if you were to move it to your own, because you can use your own RMD age if you're younger, but I didn't specify that. So thanks for
that's good.
stepping in and clarifying that part. That's helpful.
All right. So this is 4 segment, Lindsay?
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
Do you want to take the first stab at this question?
Sure. I mean, it's based on your gross income. So reducing your taxable income isn't going to change the effect.
The Social Security penalties.
Yep.
Do you have the number? It's almost
I looked it up.
One day it's going to be 24,000, and then the next day it won't be. Or excuse me, 24.
Technically almost $2,000 a month is the way they do the calculation. But.
Yep.
All right, here we go. 4 segment. Landing the plane. All right. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Josh Gregory, special guest Matt Hoke. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online. WiseMoneyShow.com is where you can find us, and all over social media. Wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. Hitting questions from fans of the show. We always are doing that, and sometimes we get stuck in a topic because we love breaking it down and helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Hit a really hard situation about spouse passing away early, what the rules are, if that could apply to you, impact your planning. Make sure you catch that and go back and listen to this episode. On to the next question here from Bernard. It says, current income's $51,000 a year. I'm 56. I'm single. Plan to retire at 65. But here's what I'm curious about. When I turn 62, can I max out my 401k, making my income a lot lower, and then file for Social Security without it being penalized?
I like what he's thinking, and I like the thought of trying to figure out how you can maximize your income. But unfortunately, the answer is no. Because when you look at that Social Security calculation, it's basing it on gross income and not what your taxable is. So it's not going to work.
Yeah. And specifically, the gross income from your paycheck. Right?
Yes.
So what Bernard is aware of here and is kind of alluding to is when you start drawing Social Security before your full retirement age. And that's a different age based on when you were born. But whatever your full retirement age, it's reported to you on your Social Security benefit statement each year, or you can log in and create your own username and password, and you can access this on ssa.gov anytime you want. But you need to know, what is your full retirement age? Here's why that age matters. If you begin drawing Social Security before that age, that's fine. You're allowed to go as early as age 62, which is exactly the scenario that Bernard was referring to. Keep in mind, drawing early means that they're going to reduce your benefits, though. And the other limitation that can apply to you is they may actually reduce your benefits further if you earn too much from a paycheck. Okay? And so that is a defined amount each year. I have the number in front of me, $1,950 per month, or $23,400 for the year. If you earn more than that from your paycheck and you're drawing Social Security early, then they will begin to reduce your benefit. For every $2 that you earn in paycheck money, they will reduce your Social Security by $1.
And just because you're paying in Social Security every single paycheck, so through FICA taxes, and so therefore it gives the sense that, they'll catch it if I get over. If you earn a little bit too much, you're not going to see a penalty on your Social Security the very next check. And so it could give the perception. I don't know if you've ever done something wrong and you're like, I was just speeding there and I didn't get caught. I passed a cop, but it looks like they didn't pull out, so I'm good. No, this one, they true it up at the end of the year.
Their buddies waiting around the corner. Watch out.
They said, hey, watch out for that white car. They're coming. So yeah, don't feel like, I just went over by 1 month. Oh, actually, nothing happened. I'm just going to keep doing that. No, they true it up. They catch up to it. So, and one way that you could, logically think about this is when you look at your Social Security statement, or you go on ssa.gov and you're reviewing your information, we encourage you, once a year, every few years or so, depending on how close you are to retirement, check that out. But check out your wage history. Your wage history, that's the number that they're looking at. And it's the income number that you pay Social Security tax on, your FICA tax on, and that portion of FICA. And yeah, that your 401k doesn't reduce that. So.
There's another question that Bernard could have asked on this that's almost like the opposite side of this coin. A lot of people wonder, okay, if I start drawing Social Security before my full retirement age, so I'm technically getting a reduced benefit, does that mean I can't pull money out of my IRAs, or I can't have rental income or some other sources of income because it'll push me too high and I'll get penalized on my Social Security? The only money, the only source of income that we're paying attention to is earned income. It's wage income or paycheck money, that sort of thing. You're limited in how much you can work without them reducing your benefits further than the early drawing already did.
Yep, that's very true. But in like so many other things, it's complicated, though, because you may not get your benefit reduced, but you may pay tax on more of it, because you can pay tax on up to 85% of your Social Security. So the more income that you have, the more of your Social Security may be subject to tax.
That's right.
Yep.
So, someone who's drawing Social Security and they're paying no tax, and then all of a sudden they're listening to the Wise Money Show and they say, man, we've got to do this Roth conversion. They keep talking about it like every weekend. They won't stop. Okay, I'm going to do it. And before you know it, maybe you're triggering more income that suddenly starts to cause your Social Security to be taxable.
Right.
So all of these decisions have to be made in the context of a financial plan. But specifically, you hear us talk about this all the time too. When was the last time that you ran a tax projection with your certified financial planner, with your CPA? Do you know what your tax picture is going to look like this year if you do nothing, if you let the year play out as normal, versus any of the other strategies that you're considering, like a Roth conversion?
Yep. All right, going to sneak in next question here. It comes from Tony out of Nashville, reached out on Spotify. I'm renting out a room in my house to your mother-in-law. Just kidding. So I'm renting out a room in my house. I'm not renting out my house. I'm renting out a room in my house. Should I set up an LLC or just record it as additional personal income? We get this, while this question's a little unique, we get different versions of this question all the time, where it sounds like, should I set up this LLC because it's going to be taxed differently, or just have it taxed like it normally would? That's not necessarily the case. That you're not comparing the LLC from a tax standpoint or not. So I'll take the first kind of go at this one. The reason why you would set up an LLC is for the limited liability. That's what the LL stands for in Cool J. That's that. Mm-hmm. So you want that limited liability, especially if you've got a stranger in your house and they are, renting a room. Hey, I'm renting a room, and when I went and used the shower, I slipped and fell. You should have had, some of those floor mats in the shower floor or something like that. Or they had their significant other over and got in an argument, and there was an altercation, and now you are part of a suit or something like that because of this conflict. And I know you'd say that would never happen. If that was going to happen, I would never rent out a room in my house. I know, but when you do that, you're getting the extra income. You don't realize that you're getting some extra risk as well. So I'm going to say yes. You're going to want that LLC. The second question is, does the LLC provide any difference on the taxes?
Right. And the answer is no on that typically, right? That the LLC doesn't change the taxation. It's just you're using it as almost a wrapper around certain business activities, so that if something goes wrong and a lawsuit or some sort of creditor was created, you're limiting their access to all the other assets that are in your name, right? That's the purpose of the LLC. This is about risk management more so than tax sheltering, because all the same tax write-offs that you could have taken as an LLC owner, you could also take as just an owner of the house who's a renter.
Yeah, Matt,
or a landlord, rather.
Matt's one of our tax experts as well, and so rental income is going to show up in the same spot, right?
That's exactly right. It's not going to change whether you're an LLC or not.
Yeah. And what schedule is that? Just to nerd out for a second.
Schedule E.
Yeah. And it's going to show gross rental income, and then you're going to have your rental expenses. And if you're only renting out a room in your house, then it's going to be
a percentage based on the square footage of that room compared to the overall home.
There's an interesting application in all this, though, especially kind of in our neck of the woods. We're in Notre Dame country here, and a lot of clients, a lot of residents in the area recognize that on weekends where there's a home game here in town, the whole world descends upon South Bend to watch the Fighting Irish.
Go Irish.
And a lot of folks will rent out their house or rent out a room in their house for just a few, weekends each year, maybe at commencement, that sort of thing. And you can do that and may be able to get some of that income tax-free if you play your cards right. So there's something for you to talk about with your certified financial planner.
Yeah, it's got to be under a certain number of days. And I'm glad you took us there, not to that unique opportunity, although that's there. But yes, you want to be aware of the tax rules with this. And you also, if you're going to rent out a room in your house, even for a weekend or something like that, you also need to be aware of, limited liability. That's not the only protection you need to have. You need to have the right type of insurance coverage, property insurance, homeowners insurance. And so this really is a planning issue, has planning implications. And so work with your CFP on that. Matt, thanks for being on the show. Sorry it took us so long. Don't be mad at me. But thanks for being here. On behalf of Matt Hoke, Josh Gregory, all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, we'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.